Hello SEO lovers, my name's Kate Toon and I'm the head chef here at the Recipe for SEO Success show. And today I'm talking to Dawn Anderson. Dawn is a digital marketing strategist who specialises in technical and architectural SEO for her company Move It Marketing. Dawn is a well-known name in the SEO world, hailing from the UK, and we met recently at the Big Digital event in Adelaide. Today she's going to provide us with some information on Google AMP. Dawn and I will be discussing how Google AMP works and how it's going to have a major impact on your website. So hello Dawn and welcome to the Recipe for SEO Success show.
Hi Kate, how are you?
It's lovely to have you here. I'm good. Now, I just did a little bio there and explained that we've been following each other on Twitter and we met at Big Digital. And I love that you're another woman in the SEO world. There are quite a few great women in the SEO world, but maybe not as many as the men. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been in SEO, if you like, for nearly 10 years now. I'm particularly interested in crawling and more of the technical aspects of things, but obviously in recent years we've had to expand our knowledge quite a bit, and recently I've kind of got more into strategizing across a lot of channels, etc., and tying it all together. And as you know, we have a common love for Pomeranians.
We do. We've got Bert and Pomplamoose, who one day we're going to get together in some way or another, because I think they'd be great. They'd be great friends. Well, that's a great intro. What I like to do at the start of the show is talk about something that's happened in the SEO world recently. Now, this show is going to be going out sometime in September, but at time of recording, the kind of big news that I'm interested in at the moment is Google's announcement that they're going to penalise sites with pop-ups. What do you think that's going to mean for business owners?
First and foremost, I have to say that I really am glad about it. There's nothing more annoying than you're trying to just browse a web page and every few seconds, half a minute, clearly on a timer, something's popping up. Get our news. And then if you say no, they say things like, hey, you don't want to make your business a success. That's fine. Go on being a loser, more or less.
Yeah.
So, I'll just be glad to see the back of those.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to have quite a big impact on a lot of websites and businesses that have set up the whole marketing automation thing, because they do work. There is evidence that these things work, even though they're annoying. And obviously, we are more critical as SEOs and people working in the digital space than maybe your average non-digital person. I think that some people are going to really suffer, and they're going to have to find another way to connect with an audience.
Do you think it means that businesses have to get rid of them altogether, or do you think it means that they have to delay them or not show them on mobiles? Do you think there's ways around it?
I think, well, if you look on the blog post that Google put out, they did show that if you have something that, say for instance, you're trying to encourage somebody to download an app, it's the big screen takeover that's the issue. Because ultimately, you aren't showing to people what they're bought into when they click through from search results. That's simple as that, So Google have shown that you can have a small top-level overlay, but then you have to think, well, actually, it's not going to do you any favours above the fold.
Yeah, I think it's about testing, and I think it's about maybe embedding your opt-in within the page, you widgetizing it, putting it in your super footer or your right-hand bar, not in the way, or maybe even, really delaying it. So it's a good 2 minutes in, which if you're writing great content, like someone's reading your blog post, that's fine. I think it's the immediate ones that are the horror. So I think the problem's especially annoying on mobile phones. So I think, that's the thing, which leads us nicely into our subject for today.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about Google AMP. And I just want to give any listeners or watchers, if you're watching this on YouTube, a little note that this subject maybe isn't for complete SEO newbies, although maybe it is. Those of you who have a little understanding of SEO, so I know the graduates from my recipe course are super keen to learn about this. They need to know this information. But if you have not done any SEO, then don't leap into Google AMP. You know, it's a little bit later down the track. But anyway, I think a good thing to do always is to start by explaining what Google AMP is. So let's do that. Google AMP stands for, or AMP stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages Project. And it's a Google-backed project with the aim of speeding up delivery of content by stripping down the code and using something known as AMP HTML. And as we just talked about, lots of people are using websites on their smartphones and their devices, their tablets. And the idea of AMP is it's going to improve the performance of mobile web to make web pages and rich content and graphics load instantly. So basically it's a stripped down version of your web pages, and it aims to work across multiple platforms. And we're going to talk about how it's going to work in the course of the show, but essentially it's a stripped down version of your site to improve the mobile usage, which is it's so true, because people will wait a little bit on desktop, but on mobile they won't wait at all. So we kind of understand what it is, I think, Dawn, but how does it work?
First and foremost, you mentioned it's a Google-backed project, and obviously that's true. But I think it's important to note that it is an open source project in that it's not just Google on its own. So it's not proprietary, as a lot of people think it is just massively proprietary and Google owns everything on it. They don't. Everything is absolutely and utterly open source. So, you know, I think it was something like 36 other collaborators across content management service providers, customer relationship management providers, publishers, loads and loads of analytics companies, you know, news sites, all came together. There's a huge project on GitHub, developer project. Anybody who's a developer can jump on board, contribute. I think last check there was something like, if I'm not mistaken, 36,000 commits. So there's loads and loads of developers on board. I follow the GitHub progress stream, because you can subscribe to it, and the speed at which it's developing is unbelievable. As you say, it literally is a very stripped down version of HTML. So a lot of things are actually forbidden in it. In that it's fairly simple. You have to do a little bit of amending of the code. Some things are not allowed. JavaScript is not allowed. CSS, you know, you can't have lots of blingy things going on. You can't have frameworks, you know, content delivery network frameworks such as Bootstrap, AngularJS, etc. But Google AMP actually is a content delivery network. So effectively, you're not going to need the others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think many of our listeners might not know what Bootstrap and all that is, but I think it's no, that's fine. And also, there's a dog barking like a crazy hound of the Baskerville in the background, so I do apologise, listeners. But I think, you know, in simple terms, I think most people understand CSS, which is cascading style sheets, controlling the look of your site and what colours, and JavaScript, which I like to describe to my students as wiggly bits, things that move, things that drop down. So all that kind of stuff is stripped back. The site is still usable. It's kind of like, I don't know, websites looked back in 1998, you know, before we had all this sexy stuff.
Well, I think it's almost to stop the traffic jam in the browser. Yeah, I'd like to, you know, to keep it simple. When a web page is waiting for lots and lots of things to queue up to join the page, and they load at different times, you know, you get that whole, everything's jerking around because there's an image that's waiting to load, and then that starts to come in and everything shakes around and everything moves around just to let that squeeze in. So the good thing is that with AMP, they are actually introducing now lots of the fancy things, but an AMP version, like the carousel, you know, in the page, the gallery, you can have photographs, you know, menus, the accordion menus. So it's going to be all there. They just have to get to that point, really, of developing it.
So it's going to evolve. It's an evolving beast. So we've talked about what's going to not be there. You know, what would an AMP page look like? Say I'm a small business owner. I've got my slider, I've got images rolling in. You know, what are my new sites going to look like? How will my navigation be different? What else will be missing from my site on an AMP version?
Well, when you first install AMP, you're going to be surprised because all your styles are just gone. When I first installed it on a small WordPress section of a project, just to get to grips with it, I thought something had gone wrong, but in actual fact, it literally is a bold page. They're baldy. And if you're lucky, you've got like a link via your logo back to your main website, but not much else. So you have to add those styles back in a little bit. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there's a few WordPress plugins that are coming together now, contributors that are styling bits and pieces, and you can add things again. Yeah. But as we've said, it literally was tiny scope extending further. But I mean, from a speed and a viewing perspective, what do you need? AMP is mostly for static pages where you want to read very quickly for the time being, yeah, or see a picture. So it's all there. It's just that we've kind of got used to all things singing and dancing over the years. And we really need all those singing and dancing things.
Well, no, we don't, and especially not on a mobile. You just want to read the content, don't you?
You want to read the New York Times or whatever. You just want to read the page and you want to be able to scroll very quickly, and you can't do that when things are moving around all over the place.
It's all about minimalism and getting back to the roots. I like it. This is fantastic. The audience for the show and the people in my groups are mostly small business owners, yeah, and they're looking at AMP and they're thinking, really? Is this another thing I need to do? How is this going to affect my ability to rank? How is this going to affect usability, conversions? Do I need to do it, Dawn? Or can I just shove it under the carpet for a little bit?
Okay, so if we recall that everybody said for years, oh, mobiles, this is the year of mobile, this is the year of mobile, this is the year of mobile. So for about 4 years, everybody was saying, this is the year of mobile. And we kind of all just ignored it. And then all of a sudden, Google announced that, more and more users were using mobile. And now we know that, for instance, there are more search queries on mobile than there are on desktop, month on month. So I wouldn't leave anything as long as that again, because everybody panicked. Lots of people tried to suddenly build mobile sites because they thought they were going to get hit by this ridiculously named Mobilegeddon, which actually we have to know that wasn't named by Google. It was, So, and a lot of sites actually suffered because they weren't able to transition them through changing user behavior. So people are changing how they use the web now. They want speed. I would certainly be having it on the radar. If you can and you've got a WordPress website or a Drupal website or a Joomla website, which are content management systems, fairly out of the box, you can get a plugin. You literally press a few buttons and you have an AMP version of your web pages. Yeah, there are 2 pages. So there's an AMP version, and it doesn't affect your normal page. Yeah, so your normal page is the one that still ranks. Yeah, the AMP version is the one that is loaded into Google's library so that they can serve that quicker. Yeah, so I would certainly be looking to do it quite soon if you can, and it's simple and straightforward. You're not going to get a ton of traffic unless you're a new site off it in the short term, but certainly it's better to be ahead of the curve than to be catching up and then finding that you haven't had chance to test conversions and you suffer as a result. So definitely, I would be looking to, keeping it on the radar now.
Fantastic. And we're going to go through some of the platforms later on in the show and talk about what you can do to make life easier. So next, I mean, we've kind of covered this, and I think you've really summarized it really, really well. But often Google does announce stuff. Google says, we're going to do this. And lots of people query whether Google's telling the truth or whether it's trying to manipulate people. Gosh, the SEO forums are a minefield for that. But, one example of this would be HTTPS, where it was like, you need to make your site secure. And lots of people did kind of rush out and make changes to their site and then it kind of made no real difference at all. So in summary, you're thinking it's something that most business owners should be focusing on in the next couple of months.
Well, for sure. I mean, for instance, it's extended now beyond just pure news and it's gone into soft news, for instance. So that article that you wrote, things to do with your family in Berlin or things to do with your family in Sydney, you have a chance of ranking in the carousel on some of the longer tail queries that actually catch your prospective audience in the early stages of the funnel. So you kind of start to build that relationship. If you aren't AMP, you're not going to show up in that carousel for soft news. So immediately, you're not going to be there. That's it.
Explain to the listeners what the carousel is. I'll put some visuals in, but just in simple terms, what's the carousel?
So on mobile, at the very top, when you type in a query, so, things to do with your family in Berlin, at the very top, there will be this, it's almost like a right to left horizontal options, if you like, of content. So they'll have a picture, they'll have a little bit of an intro. That's classed as the news carousel. And in the past, everybody, whether they were AMP or not AMP, could get visibility there, or they could rank there. Now, it's only AMP pages that can show in that carousel. Now, if you consider that on mobile, that is probably going to take up about a third of your screen. So you're immediately knocking out a third of your chance straight away to have any visibility for those, for those pages, as we've said, the soft news that are really important to the likes of travel sites, that are really important to people who have blogs, or any kind of article sharing or guides, etc. So as you say, if you are able to show the screen grab.
Yeah, I'll add that into the post. I think that's super important so that people can see what that is. Okay, so we've touched on this already a little bit, but we talked about WordPress, and we know that WordPress is one of the most popular content management systems, and lots of the students of my courses are on WordPress. So just a little bit of reassurance that there are plugins that will help you with AMP. There's one called WordPress AMP. They've always got really imaginative titles. And Yoast, which I know is hugely popular amongst my students. There's a post that I'm going to link to in the show notes that talks about the fact that they're actually going to try and implement AMP elements into the Yoast plugin. It's not clear whether that's going to be part of the free plugin or part of the premium plugin, but they're working towards it. And in the short term, there's actually a little plugin called AMP Glue, which will actually glue AMP to Yoast. This all sounds a bit complicated. Now, one thing I'd like to stress right here and now is if you're not a particularly confident developer or very happy on the back end of your WordPress site, AMP is not something I'd be tackling on my own. I would be going to a good quality developer who probably has already implemented AMP on their own site or a few other sites and getting them to do it for you. It's not something for the uninitiated. Do you agree, Dawn? Do you think it's something, would you want to be letting anybody at AMP, or do you think it's something you need a little bit of know-how at?
Yeah, I think probably if you're, as you say, you're not confident and you really spend most of your time just doing the content and publishing, you're probably better off sticking to that, and just because things can break when you start to add plugins, and there's lots of really decent developers out there who can integrate it for you, and also you are going to probably get some errors with it initially. So again, developer will hopefully have seen a few of those before and quickly resolve them for you so that you're not quite stressed.
And there is an AMP validation tool that I'll include a link to as well. But again, with that validation tool, unless you understand the results it's giving you and what therefore you need to do to fix them, it could just be a bit overwhelming. So moving on to,
well.
Sorry?
There's a Chrome extension as well now, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So add the Chrome extension. Yeah, a little Chrome extension for AMP validation as well now.
Right, well, I'll add that to the show notes too. We love a Chrome extension, don't we? A lot of people obviously aren't on WordPress. They're on other content management systems like Shopify, like Magento, like BigCommerce and Netto, and God forbid Wix and Squarespace. What the heck are they going to do? And I want to particularly focus here on e-commerce stores. What's going to happen for people who are running stores?
Interestingly enough, there was a blog post out just yesterday by from, I think it was Google actually, or I think it was the AMP project that brought out something that was around getting started with e-commerce for AMP. And it explains quite well that some pages are perfect for AMP They're static, they don't change very often, because obviously we know that AMP really works off a cache, so it's a copy, it's a static copy, yeah. So pages that move around a lot, not really suited to AMP, yeah. Or functionality, forms, still not great. And obviously with e-commerce, there's always forms. There's also the security aspects, such as people paying over, encrypted connections and so on. So there are still quite a lot of issues with that. And that, I think, is quite a way down on the development roadmap for them. So that blog post literally was talking about how you can AMP product pages, you can AMP, category pages, as long as they don't change too much, and nice hub pages. So you can amplify the journey through to e-commerce. But when it comes to the payment side of it, or the cash side of it, you just can't do it. So you have to go out of the AMP experience back into some sort of web-based or or non-AMP page. Yeah. So I'm sure that they'll implement it. eBay have done it on a lot of their pages, but it's just not going to happen immediately for e-commerce.
One of the joys of being on a platform like Shopify and Magento and those, although there are lots of downsides, is that it's not, to a degree, it's not your problem, because there's not much you can do about it until the content management system cottons on. It's not like you can glue in some code, until they update their version to deal with it, then you're kind of with it. So I would say, an interesting thing came up at Big Digital. There was a representative from Google there, Gary. People were asking, and I think this is an interesting question. My site is already super mobile friendly. It's already fast. I've already stripped it right down and minified my CSS and my JavaScript. Why do I need to AMP it as well? Is Google going to penalize my site because it's not AMP, even though it's great on mobiles? So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you have to be exceptionally great on mobiles, and you're not going to get in the carousel ever. So you could say that, well, fair enough, e-commerce sites don't really need to rank in the carousel because it's shopping pages. But there's a lot of customers to be had in that early part of the funnel, of the customer journey, if you like, while they're still doing the investigating and looking at options. And I would say that over time, as AMP continues to be developed, you are really going to struggle to get any site as fast as that, because it's super fast. It's unbelievably fast, So yeah, I would be looking to, as soon as you can, go on board with AMP.
Fantastic. I think that's a really great summary of AMP and, the priority. And I think what's going to open people's eyes is how important it is and what potential traffic you're missing out on. And I think you drew a great analogy there when you compared it to people saying, I don't need a mobile version of my site. There are still so many sites that I look at that aren't even responsive yet, let alone AMP friendly. So something to think about, something to prioritize. Dawn, you've been fantastic. Thank you for explaining everything so well. Where can people go to find out more about you and the services you offer and the great content that you share as well?
I'm on Twitter, personally at Dawniando. So I'm usually there chatting away to people, and I'm on a number of Twitter chats and whatnot. My site is Move It Marketing, so people can contact me there if they want to ask anything. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So those are the best places to get in touch. But Twitter, give me a shout and I'll shout back usually.
Fantastic. Now, I'll include links to all of those in the show notes. And if Dawn is honest, she actually lives on Twitter. I never go on Twitter without seeing a post from Dawn. And she's also involved in a lot of really great chats with the guys from SEM Rush and some other guys where you can actually ask her live questions about issues over Twitter. So definitely someone to connect. Love to have you back on the show, Dawn, to talk about something else. Maybe we'll get to your pet subject, which is crawling. She's obsessed with crawling. But thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, see you soon. Bye.
My name's Kate Toon, and this is the Recipe for SEO Success show. I'd like to finish up today by reading out one of the lovely reviews I've received for this podcast and vodcast on iTunes. And today's review is from Melinda Sampson. Melinda says, In an industry where too many agencies use the fear factor to oversell but then underdeliver services, Kate is a trusted, honest, expert source of truth for small business owners. These podcasts will help savvy business owners make a difference to their own bottom line by improving their Google ranking the way Google wants. Thank you, Melinda. I really appreciate that review. And thanks to you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, then please don't forget to leave a rating or review in iTunes or Stitcher. Your review will help others find this podcast and learn more about the wonders of search engine optimization. If you're on iTunes, don't forget to click subscribe so you can be the first to know about future episodes. And finally, you can head over to the website at www.therecipeforseosuccess.com.au to read the show notes for this episode and get links to all the tools and resources. Until next time, happy SEOing.